And we're ready to go, John.
Okay, Norma, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. We'll do a little gong for the beginning of class. Namaste. Namaste. So nice to be with you all. Thanks to Zoom. And I've been doing meditation classes on Zoom now since March, and I have been amazed at how well they go. And I'll just share with you that when all of this began, I thought, well, it'd be nice to have meditation classes on Zoom, but it won't be nearly as good as being together. And my experience has been that it is quite good. And I can't say better or worse, but a little different. But the beautiful thing about it is that when we are together in this way, the connection that runs through all of us, and you can call that whatever you want to, the universal life force, God, Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, samadhi, satori, nirvana, the place of pure awareness that connects us all is just as present through this technology as it is when we are in person together. Now, I'm a big hugger, so I love to hug people, so I miss that opportunity. But this experience of the depth that we can go to together in consciousness through this medium is quite extraordinary. So I'm really happy to be able to share this evening with you. Terrence Mulligan always asks me to come and speak to the healing class about meditation. And it is my pleasure to do so because I'll just give you a little background, a couple of things that the Terrence always likes me to mention. One is that when I was 3 years old in 1953, I contracted polio. And it was a very serious case. And the doctors said to my parents after diagnosing the situation, they said, you have to prepare yourselves, your son is going to die. And if he doesn't die, which there is a 99% chance that he will die, if he doesn't die, there's a 95% chance that he will wind up in an iron lung. Some of you may be too young to know what an iron lung is, but since I had the form of polio that destroys the neuromuscular system that controls our breathing, an iron lung was a great big cylindrical thing that you spent the rest of your life lying on your back in. It was basically a big respirator, and it would breathe for you. So many people who had polio in those days, that form of polio, which wasn't the one that caused crippling of the legs, but caused crippling of the respiratory system. Well, my father, who was a very ambitious entrepreneur who never took no for an answer, said to the doctors, there must be something we can do. And they said, no, there's nothing we can do. My father said, there must be something. And one of the doctors said, you can pray. I recommend that you pray. So my father went home and he called our minister at our church. And then he started calling all of his friends and family and business associates and basically said to everybody, would you please pray for our son in whatever tradition you practice? And within a couple of days, he had over 200 people who had committed to praying each day at certain times. One night, about a week later, our minister was visiting with my dad and sitting and praying with him at our house. I was in the hospital. The minister left. My mother went to bed. My father was lying on my bed in my room. And he suddenly had a vision of Jesus standing next to my bed in the hospital with his hand on my forehead, and he was smiling. And my father said, that's got to be good. So he ran in, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, woke my mother up and said, don't worry, John is going to be okay. 20 minutes later, at 2:20 a.m., there was a call from the head nurse on the ward that I was on it was the Essex County Isolation Hospital in Belleville. The head nurse called and said, Mr. Welshons, there has been a miracle. Your son is awake. His fever has broken. There doesn't seem to be any significant paralysis, and he's demanding pancakes. And I still love pancakes. So that's one story, a very profound story that we don't have enough time tonight, unfortunately, to get too deeply into how profoundly that shaped my life. But years later, I met my dear friend Ram Dass. Many of you probably know who Ram Dass was. He just died in December of 2019 at the age of 88. I met Ram Dass in 1973. And at that time, he was talking about the fact that he was finding sitting and meditating and being present with people who were dying to be the highest spiritual practice he had ever come upon. And as I got to know him, he was working a bit with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was just a superstar in that realm. She really was probably the person who, more than any single individual, inspired the hospice movement in the United States. She was from Switzerland, a psychiatrist. And anyway, he was working with her, and he said to me and to Stephen Levine and several other people, you should go study with Elizabeth. So I went to study with Elizabeth. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but it was quite extraordinary. And one of the outcomes of that was that one of our group, a fellow who had been in India with Ram Dass for many years, started something called the Dying Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which was basically a combination of an ashram and a hospice. So the idea was it was essentially an ashram or spiritual center. And what brought people together in that particular spiritual center was the fact that some of the participants were dying. So if you had a terminal illness, you could go there to be surrounded by people who would love you and care for you and so on. Now, the interesting thing that fascinated Terence initially was that we had no intention of healing people. We didn't really consider that our role. We felt our role was to heal people spiritually, help them heal, by surrounding them with love and acceptance and helping them to not feel frightened and to not go through some of the worst of the emotional issues that people who are dying would often go through. So what was fascinating about it, and some of you may have heard this story before, but Ram Dass, who was sort of spiritually the spiritual inspiration behind all of this, came to visit the dying center. Well, it turned out that for the first year it was open, everybody who came there to die, everybody who came with a hopeless terminal diagnosis and came to the dying center to die, got better and left. And we couldn't quite figure out what was going on. In fact, Ram Dass, who had a very funny sense of humor, said, this is a heck of a dying center. I mean, we're going to get a bad reputation. Nobody dies here. What we came to understand was that perhaps it was that quality of love and acceptance and doing the best that we could do to create an atmosphere that was free of fear that allowed many of the people who came there to experience something that allowed their bodies to heal. Now, that didn't continue. Later, people did come and die at the dying center. But it was a fascinating exploration, and we started to see that in so much of the work that we were doing, so that we approached everything ultimately with what my friend Stephen Levine used to call don't know mind. In other words, to approach, some of you probably read Suzuki Roshi's wonderful book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, in which he says, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Well, Stephen created something similar to that, which he called don't know mind, so that we could enter into every interaction with an attitude of, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's possible here. All we can do is open our hearts, quiet our minds, be fully present in the situation with the person that we're working with, and see what happens. Now, I'm sure in the course of your healing studies, you will learn many techniques for assisting in the process of healing in another human being and in yourself. Don't ever forget the old maxim, physician, heal thyself. The greatest healing, the greatest spiritual teaching, the greatest assistance that can be given to another human being comes out of our own consciousness. In other words, the only thing we can really share with another human being is our own being. Ram Dass used to talk about it as becoming an environment, so that you are a vibrational environment wherever you go, whenever you sit with someone, whoever you're with, you're creating an environment of peace and harmony and love and kindness and generosity. All of those qualities are the qualities that foster healing. I was looking at some of my notes and came across this wonderful quote from Stephen Levine, which I included in my first book, Awakening from Grief, in which he says, healing is not forcing the sun to shine. It's letting go of that which blocks the light. Not forcing the sun to shine, but letting go of that which blocks the light. So, to go back to the example of our dying center and all the people who healed there and in other interactions that we had in different parts of the country and in their homes and wherever. Um, Another great example of that would be those of you who don't know Stephen Levine's work. I highly recommend it. He met Elizabeth Kubler-Ross when I met her, started working with people who were dying, and realized that in conjunction with the work with people who were terminally ill came this whole body of information and experience about healing. His very wife, Andrea, came to one of his dying workshops in 1981. And they immediately fell in love. It was a pure soul partnership. Beautiful, beautiful couple and beautiful marriage. 1981, she came because she was dying. She had lupus and leukemia, and she had all kinds of physical issues. And they fell in love and got together thinking that they only had a short time together. That was 1981. She's still alive. And Stephen died 3 years ago, but Andrea's still alive. So the interesting thing is that we generally are not in the business of presenting ourselves as healers, but we always try to take this approach of don't know mind or beginner's mind, so that whatever situation we enter into, I don't care at this point what the diagnosis is. I've seen people heal from the most hopeless circumstances. We also see people die suddenly, spontaneously, without warning, who seem to be in perfect health. So don't know mind incorporates all of that. So when I'm with someone, I don't generally have the mindset that this is a hopeless circumstance. Anything can happen. And I approach the process of healing as being a conduit for allowing the loving energy of the universe to do its thing in whatever way is the best for the person I'm working with. So that's sort of a beginning to how I approach healing, and my teachers and compatriots approach it. Now, tonight we're specifically talking about meditation and the place of meditation in healing. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the voluminous research that's been done over the past 50 years about the physiological effects of meditation. We know that it slows the blood pressure, it calms the metabolism, it lowers respiration, it does all kinds of things. And I'm not a scientist, so I can't recite chapter and verse, but the data is readily available if you want to look it up. I look at meditation more as an opportunity to learn how to become free of fear. Now, a lot of people say things like, I can't meditate because my mind is too agitated. My mind is too busy. It's sort of like saying, I can't do yoga because I've never practiced. I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. The yoga itself is the practice that helps you become flexible, where you say, I can't play a piano because I've never taken a lesson. Well, meditation, of course, it's difficult for most of us when we start, because what we're endeavoring to do in meditation is to train our mind to do what we want it to do. Now, just reflect for a moment on how many times in life, and this whole thing that we've been going through, which connects to health and healing and fear and all sorts of things, in the last 4 months in our culture, think of how many times your life has been disrupted by some frightening thought that you can't stop thinking and it keeps you awake at night, or some irritating thought, something made you angry or hurt your feelings or upset you in some way, and you can't go to sleep because your mind just keeps playing it over and over and over again. The meditation is a practice that ultimately, when you become good at it, the end result may be partially that you can tell your mind, no, I don't want to think about that right now. That's not productive. I need to sleep right now. I'll think about it tomorrow. And have the ability to achieve that. And we cultivate that by learning how to put our mind on different things rather than our thinking mind. So the meditation that I teach is really the precursor or ancestor of what's now known as mindfulness. It's called Vipassana, and it arose in the Buddhist tradition. It's really the core meditation practice that exists in one form or another through most forms of contemplative Buddhism. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's known as Vipassana. In Zen, Zen is really an outgrowth of this form of practice, and it's called Zazen, but it's got many of the same original foundations. Now, I have to run through this fairly quickly, and then we're going to do some meditation before the evening is over. What we do is we recognize that our experience of life happens in 3 primary realms. And those are sensation in the body, sound in the environment, and thoughts in the mind. Sensation, sound, and thought. Now, thought is where we get all bogged down. So what we do in this practice is we endeavor to redirect our attention to the other 2, to sensation in the body and sound in the environment, primarily sensation. And the way we deal with thoughts when we're meditating is we just kind of let them pass through the mind. So we develop this awareness that our mind is at its core just a vast field of pure, undifferentiated awareness, just awareness itself. Sometimes it's described as being like you go to a movie theater and you sit down before the movie starts and the screen is in front of the theater, just this blank white screen. And then eventually the lights come down and the projector is turned on and the film starts running through the projector and we see images on the blank white screen. Well, in that analogy, the blank white screen is awareness or consciousness. It has no content. It's just the field in which the content of thought and experience arises. So the screen is awareness. The movie projector is the mind. And the film running through the projector, each individual little square of frame of image, is a thought. So what we're doing in these practices that we're going to experience tonight is just endeavoring to direct our attention away from the thought so that ultimately what happens is the film running through the projectors begins to slow down a little bit. In other words, the rate of thinking slows down. And ultimately, you begin to see the spaces between thoughts. That may not happen tonight. It may take a while to get to that. But let's just see what happens as we undertake these practices together. We'll probably do 2 different practices this evening, and I want to leave time for questions. Maybe when I do my meditation classes, what we do, because it's a little less chaotic, is that if anybody has a question, we do it through the chat function. So if you want to bring up your chat function, you can ask if there's anything that's come up so far, because we're going to actually close our eyes in a few moments and begin to meditate. And Norma, I just need to ask, I forgot to ask what time you'd like the class to end tonight, or when you'd like me to finish. So
it usually finishes at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Okay.
So we have a full hour yet.
Beautiful. Okay. We okay so far?
Yes.
All right. Good. Okay. So what I'm going to invite you to do when we meditate, generally, the idea is to sit with head, neck, and back in as straight a line as possible, but without rigidity or tension, so that you're gently upright. Like tonight, I'm giving myself the luxury of sitting in a nice cushy armchair, which is a very rare thing for me to do when I'm meditating, but it's okay because it's nice and straight. Often I'll sit on a cushion called a zafu, and there are different reasons for the ways that we sit in these practices, but in general, when you're starting out and you really just want to use this as a means of calming down, my recommendation is just to be as comfortable as possible, remembering to stay upright. And that's simply to give your mind the recognition that you're doing something that is somewhat important. So you're not sitting around like this, but rather sitting up. Okay, so what we'll do is we will begin the practice and I will just guide you through it. And then eventually we'll stop. I'll ring the gong once at the beginning and 3 times at the end. And I'll warn you when I'm going to ring the gong at the end. And we'll just have an opportunity to go within our own being together. So I invite you to gently close your eyes. And just allow your awareness to settle down into this moment. This body, this place. And when we settle into meditation, we endeavor to leave behind, to whatever extent possible, all of the moments that preceded this moment. And we endeavor to let go, to whatever extent possible, of all of the moments we anticipate in the future, so that we can just be here now. Because this moment, now, as it turns out, is the place we find happiness and peace when we're experiencing life directly in precisely the moment it's happening. When we're thinking about life, we're thinking about the past or the future instead of just experiencing it as it is in this moment. So I invite you again to just settle down into this moment. As you settle down into this moment, you may begin to notice your body breathing. And we're going to meet the experience of breathing as sensation. And as we do this practice, we endeavor to not change the breath in any way or control it in any way. We just let the breath breathe itself, trusting that the body knows how much air it needs, how frequently it needs to breathe, how deeply it needs to breathe. And recognize that that may change from moment to moment. And we just endeavor to be at peace with and attuned to the breath the body is breathing right now. Whether that be an out breath or an in breath, or the space between the out breath and the in breath, or between the in breath and the out breath. So just let yourself settle down. Feel this body sitting here, this body that you live in. And then gently allow yourself to become aware of the body breathing. In this part of the practice, we don't endeavor to change the breath, control the breath. We just feel whenever sensation presents itself in our awareness, a sensation connected with breathing. We just gently begin to allow our attention to go there, wherever in the body the strongest sensation connected with the breath arises. As we do this, if you find it helpful, you can use the words breathing in on each in-breath and breathing out on each out-breath. Silently repeat it. not to tell yourself to breathe in and out, but to remind yourself simply that that's what you're endeavoring to watch, to pay attention to feel. The experience of breathing in, the experience of breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Now, as we do this, there are two primary realms of experience of sensation connected with breathing. The first one occurs primarily in the front of the torso. It can be in the abdomen, which for our purposes will be the front of the torso beneath the waist, the belly, the front of the torso above the waist, and the chest. And what we're experiencing in the abdomen, the belly, and the chest are sensations created by primarily muscular movements. Movements of the diaphragm and the abdominal muscles, stomach muscles and chest muscles, and the expansion and contraction of the rib cage. So just let yourself be with that for a few moments. And just notice where the strongest sensation arises. Abdomen, belly, or chest? Or is it all three? Or is it two of those? There are no right or wrong answers. What we're doing is simply cultivating the awareness of our immediate experience right now, this breath. Breathing in, breathing out. And just know that where the predominant sensation arises may keep changing from one breath to another, or even in the middle of a breath. And you just stay with wherever that predominant sensation presents itself. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Now we're going to add in the awareness of the second realm in which we experience sensation connected with breathing, and that is in the nostrils, beginning with the entrance to the nostrils, and then rising up through the nostrils and the nasal cavities, down the windpipe and the throat, and ultimately inflating the lungs. Air filling the lungs and then discharging, flowing back out into the atmosphere. And these sensations are the sensations created by air passing across skin. At the entrance to the nostrils, up inside the nostrils, through the sinus cavities, down the windpipe, into the lungs. Breathing in, breathing out. Now again, without changing anything or controlling anything, basically what we're doing is adopting the stance as if you were sitting on the beach and you realized there was a school of dolphins out in the ocean and you wanted to see them. But you don't know exactly where they are, so you take this sort of passive gaze where you're watching the surface of the ocean, waiting for a moment where a dolphin arises above the surface. That's kind of how we watch our breath. And you just wait to see where the predominant sensation takes form. So we have the front of the torso, the abdomen, the belly, and the chest. And we have the nasal passages, the sinuses, the windpipe, and the lungs. Front of the torso, expanding and falling. The nasal passages, feeling a whoosh of air, brushing across skin. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Just allowing your attention to flow to wherever the predominant sensation arises, from moment to moment, from breath to breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Whenever the mind wanders, you can just note wandering mind and guide the attention back to the sensations of the breath. In other words, no big deal. Don't fight with thought, just notice it and endeavor to come back to sensation. To feel what's happening in your body in this moment. Breathing in, breathing out. Now we're going to cultivate a little greater focus by beginning to direct our attention to the entrance to the nostrils. So we're going to endeavor to specifically watch that place of sensation, right on the rims of the nostrils, so that you can feel very clearly the sensation of air flowing across skin as each breath enters the nostrils and exits the nostrils. And in this part of our practice, we're not following the breath in down into the lungs or back out into the atmosphere. We're just feeling the subtle sensations that spontaneously arise on the rims of the nostrils as we breathe in and breathe out. Receiving the sensation of the breath like a soft, soothing, caressing breeze, gently blowing across the skin in the entrance to the nostrils. Like the most beautiful summer breeze you've ever felt, arising in the entrance to the nostrils in every breath you take. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Mindfulness of breathing. Using the sensations that are happening right now in this breath as a means to keep bringing our awareness back into the present moment. Breathing in, breathing out. Know where we need to go, nothing we need to do, not even any identity we need to uphold, no one we need to be, just pure awareness, receiving life exactly as it is in precisely the moment it's happening. Breathing in, breathing out. Just let your body be soft and open and receptive. Now that we've sat, quieted for a while, if you notice any tightness or tension in the body, see if on the next few out breaths you can just let it flow out of the body. Let the body soften, letting resistance dissolve, letting clinging dissolve. So that in this practice, right now, you can just be in this moment and be at peace with it being exactly as it is. Gently directing the attention to the subtle sensations of each in-breath and each out-breath in the entrance to the nostrils. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Mindfulness of breathing. In a moment, I'll ring the gong 3 times. As I do, just allow your eyes to continue to stay gently closed, hearing the sound of the gong arising, existing, and passing away. After the 3rd ringing of the gong, we'll take a few more moments with eyes gently closed, and I'll guide you as to when to open them. Breathing in, breathing out. Attention gently focused on the sensations on the rims of the nostrils. Awareness existing everywhere. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Now just allow yourself to feel not just the entrance to the nostrils, but your entire face, and the sides of your head, the back of your head, the top of your head. Feel your shoulders, your arms and hands, fingers and thumbs, your chest and belly and abdomen, rising with each in-breath, falling with each out-breath. And feel how different the back of the torso feels, where the spine is the center. Let it be strong and straight, but soft and open. Feel your hips, your thighs, your knees, lower legs, ankles, and feet. And then see if you can feel as if you are the air surrounding your body. Feel this body surrounded by your awareness and held gently and tenderly. Breathing in, breathing out. And then when it feels comfortable to you, so that it doesn't feel like there would be any stress involved, it's just a very gentle transition from meditation to regular waking awareness. You can begin to just let your eyes slowly open. And let the room come back into focus slowly and gradually. Namaste. If you have any questions or comments right now, maybe you can type them in the chat function for me or for Buddha. He may speak. So that's the practice of mindfulness of breathing, or its Sanskrit name is Anapanasati. And it really offers us the opportunity to enter into our bodies and into our own existence in a way that perhaps we never previously have. And one of the things that I'll do when I'm teaching regularly is that we'll begin to see if we can approach each breath as if it's the first breath of our life. In other words, we all carry around this vast, burdensome history of, the stuff that's happened to us. Some good, some not so good, some pleasant, some not so pleasant. Wayne Dyer used to tell it in a funny way. He would say, it's like we're all carrying around this great big duffel bag on our backs. It's so heavy and it's so burdensome and so cumbersome. And we're hunched over because it's so heavy. It's so full of stuff. And then every now and then we just have to set it down on the ground to have some relief. But then we open up the zipper and look inside, and the stuff that's inside is manure. And then we reach in with both hands and grab a couple of handfuls and smear it all over ourselves. And then we wonder why our life stinks. It is very much this burden of personal history. So I'm not suggesting that the traumatic things that have happened in your life haven't been traumatic, or that they didn't happen, or that they didn't have an effect. But what I'm suggesting is that through this practice and other similar practices, we can come to the point where we're not so imprisoned by them. And one of the ways of doing that is to begin to meet each in-breath as if it's the first breath of our life, as if we just came out of the womb, refreshed, renewed. It's all new. And we can keep coming back to that in each and every breath. Something I wanted to read you in that regard. This is a beautiful quote from Eckhart Tolle on fear. And I wanted to read this evening because I think that there is no mental tendency that is more destructive to human happiness and more destructive to actual physical health than fear. So one of the things that we have to work with when we're dealing with a situation that's calling for healing is to do what we can to let go of fear. And fear is just a condition of thought. In other words, the mind is constantly telling us, if I'm not frightened, you're not safe. That's our mind giving us that message. If I'm not frightened, you're not safe. So it thinks its job is to be frightened. So that is one of the primary things that we begin to work with and deal with as we are working to learn to meditate and to let go of the part of us that gets in the way of healing, that which blocks the light. This is what Eckhart says. The psychological condition of fear is divorced from any concrete and true immediate danger. It comes in many forms: unease, worry, anxiety, nervousness, tension, dread, phobia, and so on. This kind of psychological fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. Always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. You are in the here and now while your mind is in the future. This creates an anxiety gap. And if you are identified with your mind and have lost touch with the power and simplicity of the now, that anxiety gap will be your constant companion. You can always cope with the present, but you cannot cope with something that is only a mind projection. You cannot cope with the future. So this discussion always gives rise to a variety of different perspectives and thoughts and challenges in which our mind says, oh, I don't know about that, you know. I think that the simple way of saying it is that there is a vast difference between prudence and fear, or between caution and fear. That's gotten very mixed up in the whole coronavirus business, because some people feel that to wear a mask in public is an expression of fear, when in fact, perhaps it's just an expression of caution and prudence and honoring of one another and each other's safety. I don't want to get too deeply into that because we've all heard way more than enough of it. But bear that in mind and take it to heart. There is a big difference between fear and caution and fear and prudence. So if you act responsibly, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're being fearful. In fact, it may be the opposite of fear. So how to let go of the fear that is creating certain physical conditions or psychological conditions? That's really, as I said at the outset, if there is one tool that meditation offers us, it is that, the path to getting free from fear. And then sometimes you come to know that maybe there's fear in the mind, but it's not necessarily capturing your being in the way it used to. You just notice it like any other thought. And it's like the Dalai Lama is so beautiful because, you know, people often ask him, Your Holiness, do you have the same kinds of thoughts the rest of us have? And he goes, oh yeah, I'm human just like you. They said, well, what do you do about them? He said, I don't pay any attention to them. So again, could you imagine that you could get to a place where your thoughts weren't quite as terrifying and captivating and overwhelming as they have been in previous years? That's a tool that meditation can offer to you. I'm going to read you a wonderful statement from a teacher named Alan Watts. Now, some of you may remember Alan Watts, which generally means that you're as old as I am. Alan died in 1973. He was quite an extraordinary being. He was from England. He was a Episcopal priest, or an Anglican priest, and wound up getting very interested in Eastern philosophy, and was an extraordinary teacher. Very funny, too. This is a statement called Bolting Our Lives. As it is, we are merely bolting our lives, gulping down undigested experiences as fast as we can stuff them in, because awareness of our own existence is so superficial and so narrow that nothing seems to us more boring than simply being. If I ask you what you did saw, heard, smelled, touched, and tasted yesterday, I am likely to get nothing more than the thin, sketchy outline of the few things that you noticed, and of those, only what you thought worth remembering. Is it surprising that an existence so experienced seems so empty and bare that its hunger for an infinite future is insatiable? But suppose you could answer, well, it would take me forever to tell you, and I'm much too interested in what's happening now. How is it possible that a being with such sensitive jewels as the eyes, such sensitive jewels as the eyes, such enchanted musical instruments as the ears, and such a fabulous arabesque of nerves as the brain, can experience itself as anything less than a god? And when you consider that this incalculably subtle organism is inseparable from the still more marvelous patterns of its environment, from the minutest electrical designs to the whole company of the galaxies, how is it conceivable that this incarnation of all eternity can be bored with being? How could we be bored? One of the things that we look at in meditation when we're observing the breath is the fact that each breath we inhale, first of all, we're inhaling this substance that's invisible. We can't see it. It's offered to us by Mother Earth. It's created by the trees and the grasses and the flowers, sending oxygen into the atmosphere and cleansing the impurities in the atmosphere. We breathe it into our lungs. Our lungs know how to extract the nutrition from the air, the invisible air, how to convert it into substances that can be passed into our blood. The heart pumps and sends the blood throughout the body, feeding every cell in the body with this invisible substance, without which we can't live. And you think that nothing miraculous has ever happened to you? Allow for the possibility that every moment of your life is a miracle. Now, I want to take us into one more meditation practice. So, without further ado, I invite you to once again sit up straight and gently close your eyes. And once again, allow the awareness to settle down into this moment, into this body, into this place. Leaving behind to whatever extent possible all of the moments that preceded this one, so that we can be here now. And in this practice, I invite you to allow your attention to come to the center of your chest. And feel your chest rising with each in-breath and falling with each out-breath. Now envision a beautiful opening in the center of your chest, which is like a third nostril through which you can breathe. So as the breath continues entering and exiting through the nose, feel it also entering and exiting through the center of your chest. And let it come directly into your heart and surround your physical heart with a loving, caressing sense of gratitude for all your heart has done and continues to do without ever having to be asked. Now look deeply into your own heart until you can see what in India is called the Hridayam. The Hridayam is the spiritual heart. It's analogous to the soul. In the Upanishads, it is said that you see it initially as a brilliant white light about the size and shape of a thumb. So see if you can envision that brilliant white light about the size and shape of a thumb in the center of your heart, and then let it begin to grow and expand outward so that it begins to fill your entire chest, and it flows down into your belly and your abdomen, out into your arms and hands, down into your legs and feet, up into your neck and your head, till this entire body is transformed into a body of pure white light. Exactly what it is, a body of light. And let that light flow to every cell in your being. Let that light be the light of love, the light of peace, the light of healing, and the light of joy. And then let it begin to flow out through every pore in your skin, so that this body of light is now emanating light out as an aura surrounding your body. Light emanating light. And just let that aura keep expanding outward, so that eventually your body of light, is just floating in an ocean of light and love, peace and joy. Just let that light keep expanding so that it begins to embrace and envelop everyone on our Zoom conference this evening. And it goes out to reach everyone in your home, everyone in your family, all of your loved ones, everyone you know who is struggling with fear or illness, sending a blessing of love, light, peace, healing, and joy. And to yourself, Don't forget to drink it into your heart, into your being, into every cell of your body, every organ, every bone, radiant with the white light of love and healing. And just let this light continue to flow out as we all merge into the one light we all share. The light that we're referring to when we say the word namaste. I honor the light within you. The light in me honors the light in you. Send this light out so that it begins to surround this entire earth, sending a blessing of love, peace, healing, and joy to everyone on earth who's suffering. To everyone on earth whose mind is tortured with fear and anger, a blessing of love. To yourself, if your mind is tortured with fear and anger, let us all send you and send yourself blessing of love, light, peace, healing, and joy. Just let yourself sit in this vast, infinite ocean of pure light and love. Drinking it in with each in-breath, sending it back out into the universe with each out-breath. May all beings everywhere, including you, be happy. May all beings everywhere, including you, know peace. May all beings everywhere, including you, be free from suffering. And may all beings everywhere, including you, be allowed the grace to experience totally unconditional love. The love that created this universe. The love that created and sustains you. Totally unconditional love. Breathing in, breathing out. When it feels comfortable to you, gently and slowly begin to open the eyes. Again, using soft, unfocused gaze. Namaste. In India, that word namaste has three levels of meaning. The first is, I honor the light in you. The second level of meaning is, the light in me honors the light in you. And the third level of meaning is, I honor that place in you and in me, where when you are in yours and I'm in mine, there's only one of us. So to all of us, namaste. It's been so lovely being with you this evening. We didn't get anything on the chat function, so I just am delighted to be with you. And there is a handbook, a workbook, not a workbook, but just a handout, basically. It's about 10 pages that goes with this class, that I can email to you if we can figure out how to do that somehow. So maybe I'll work that out with Norma. And Norma, anything that we need to do or say before we close?
Well, Terrence is also at the meeting now, and if he wants to say anything, he should unmute himself. On the chat, we do have a question. What's the name of the person you recommended we look up? LeVay?
Levine, Stephen Levine, Stephen. His last name is Levine, Levine. And he was a dear friend of mine and one of my teachers, and extraordinary human being. His first really famous book was called Who Dies? And that was followed up by meditations on healing and healing into life and death and embracing the beloved, which was a beautiful book about relationships. So you just look him up on Amazon and you'll find, oh, he must have written about a dozen books. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Let's see, Kareen, great meditations. Please list your books and where you can be seen and reached. Okay. Maybe it's easier for me to tell you if you don't mind writing down. My website is onesoulonelove.com. So that's OneSoulOneLove.com. And I live in Montclair, New Jersey, so I'm not far from Sparta. And I do Wednesday night meditation class, usually at a place called Van Vleck House in Montclair, but we haven't been able to meet there since March. So we're doing them online. So if you'd like to join for that, you can look on my website at my schedule. So again, it's onesoulonelove.com, has my schedule of appearances and classes and so on. And, or you can write to me. I'll write down my email address. And if anybody else has anything to say, this is the time.
We've got one more comment that someone mentioned. There are YouTube videos of that.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of YouTube videos of Stephen Levine and me. And unfortunately not together, but
Seems to be.
so is Terrence with us?
Yes, he is.
Hello, Terrence.
John. Aha, can I be heard?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I've been here since the start.
Oh, great.
Norma cranked open the door, and I went into a trance. So I haven't said a word. It was absolutely spellbinding. terrific evening.
Oh, good. I liked it. I'm glad you did. How wonderful.
Very much so. Yeah, I went places I haven't actually been able to get to before. And
Aha.
it could be the because we're, at home sitting in a chair, there's no distraction at all,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
could just take it in, different from the class.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how it would go tonight, but I mean, I know you've done so many classes, I knew it couldn't flop, but but I knew but I knew it would be different, and it is. I think this was very rewarding.
That's what I found. That's what I was saying at the beginning, Terrence, when we started doing the Wednesday night classes for Van Bleckhouse online, my heart sort of sank and I thought, oh, this is going to be a cheap imitation, but no, it's been really deep and really beautiful, the sharing that we've done.
Well, yes, we've done some of the Wednesday night. We have a healing circle every Wednesday night up at the church.
Uh-huh.
Except we had to have quite a few of them on Zoom, and I was leading it from my laptop, which seemed to me to be kind of an artificial pedestal. And but when you're in the center of a group like this or like that, you can tell right away if things coalesce.
Right.
And they did.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really surprised, but it was exactly equal to a live meeting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was pleased with that, and I'm sure this was also. And certainly the meditation went just as far, if not further, than it would normally would do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure everybody's got a comment, but you have to really call their names out and say, okay, Richie, what'd you get? Okay, Louis, what'd you get? Okay, Tanya, what'd you get? But I won't even suggest that.
Oh, okay. I thought you were suggesting it, but it's fine with me. But I can hang around for a few minutes if you want, or whatever.
Yeah.
If you need to
Okay.
close out, that's fine too. But I just posted both my email address and John Welshons at earthlink.net and my website, so people can write those down, because I think when the meeting's over, those disappeared.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I thought it was very fabulous.
Oh, good. Good. Well, thank you so much, Norma. And please thank Bob for helping me get set up in the beginning.
Right.
And just thank you to everyone who is here with us. It's, I can feel in my heart a really beautiful, rich group. So
Yes.
thanks for having me.
Norma, can you announce to everybody what we do next? The